Hey guys, this is Vivian Reed and welcome to my channel. Now, don't forget to subscribe and don't forget to like. And I always like it when you say nice things. Okay, today, we're not going to talk music and dance and all of that stuff. We're going to talk money because so many of us, including me, come into this business thinking that it's going to always be there. So what do? We spend. When we go on a tour, we could be on a tour for a year. And then at the end of the tour, we don't have anything money-wise to show for it. So I have some experts on today. We have Carllee. He's a senior financial analyst. He was with ExxonMobil for 35 years. So that should tell you something. Okay? And his lovely wife, Lynnie Godfrey. She is an extraordinary actress and singer, and she has her own theater company doing great things. But let's be clear here. She also knows about money, okay? And then there's Byron Burford Fierce, another financial analyst. And he's an expert in his field. So I have assembled these people along with myself because I have become savvy. Okay, I'm pretty savvy, but there was a time I wasn't. So I want you to listen up, maybe take out your pencils and papers and, take note. We're going to do two different things here. First, we're going to start off with young people who don't know a thing. They're just coming into show business. And we're going to start you off with the basics, okay? And then we're going to deal with people who are well-known and been in the business for a while. And we're going to talk about how managers have taken advantage of them and why does that happen. Carl, I'm going to start with you. Somebody's just come into the business. Maybe they've landed a Broadway show, which if it's a hit, could run for several months or several years. They're getting a weekly check. What would you advise that they do?
Well, you assume that if they in that type of business, they may have other expenses also. Mm-hmm. So obviously, there's always some money left to do more creative things with it, other than paying the rent or paying your mortgage or whatever you have as an expense. So I think there's a time where you don't go downtown and buy yourself a Gucci something.
What? No Gucci.
No Gucci. No. It's a time that you put that money aside in a simple, interest-bearing bank account. And if you're far more creative in terms of what you want to do, you can even do some very conservative type stock purchases and stuff like that. So I think they just have to be very conservative, regardless of what your age is in terms of how you spend your money. You can still enjoy yourself. You can travel, but be frugal with your travel. You could buy a gift for a friend, but you can still be frugal with that money. You'll find yourself have a little nice egg at the end of the year and at the end of the 5 years or 10 years by doing that.
That's great advice. Byron, pick it up.
Well, I would agree with that. I really think that if we change our mentality and our thinking when it comes to money, then we can have the Gucci shoes, we can have the carllee,
later on.
we can have that, but we have to start thinking in terms of not necessarily what you can and can't afford at a given point in time, but what is actually in your budget at a given point in time. Mm-hmm. Because the whole concept of budgeting is a discipline that leads to the freedoms of being able to purchase high ticket items. So I would never purchase a Gucci shoe unless I can equally put 600 euros into a bank account, 600 euros into an investment account.
What is euros in dollars? 600
euros. 600 euros is approximately $800.
Okay, you got that, guys. $800. Okay,
$800, right? Into a savings account, into a money market account, or a stock market account, or I've just paid a mortgage on a property, which is another type of investment, as we all know. Then I can, if I've divided my money up responsibly into 2 or 3 different ways, and there's enough left over for a nice shoe, as they say, then there's nothing wrong with that. But setting up a budget, no matter how big or how small, is the first step in order to gain that kind of freedom.
And I would venture to say that 90% of the people just starting off, because you're talking about, you could be, because I was very young when I got started. You could be 21, 22, 23 and land a Broadway show or something that's going on tour. And you may probably not know about the stock market, because I did not know. You may not know that much about real estate, but what you can do, the very basic, I think, is savings account, like Carl mentioned. Just make up your mind, look at your budget, as you mentioned, Byron, look at your budget and come up with a sum that you can comfortably put away, even if it's not that big, but you are going to religiously put that money away in a savings account or an interest-bearing savings account religiously. Out of every check, you can't touch it.
Right.
This is what you have figured that you can afford. I don't care if it's just $10, $15, $25, but you got to be consistent. You're getting ready to go on tour. So you want to see something after that tour. Okay, great advice. And we're not through with that, but I got to jump to girl, Lynnie.
Now, I thank you, gentlemen, for what you were saying, but let me go into the head of a young entertainer at this point in time. Mm-hmm. And having been very young when I got my Broadway show, one of the things that I had to really realize was I was surrounded by people who were a bit older, who were not as disciplined as I was. So I had to then decide what my 2, 3, 5-year plan was going to be. I think that you have to really, along with the budgeting, what you have to do is change the way you're thinking. Mm-hmm. Thinking has to be one where you divide up your check, to things where it's like a diet. You don't want to starve yourself, but you want to get the benefits of doing the discipline. So if you have $1,000, then, all right, you take 1/10 of that is $100. That should be something that you can spend. Now you've got $900 of that percentage. Then you can start talking about rent and investments and things like that. You put it down in a book and you record it every month. That's what Vivian is talking about when she talks about consistency. But the main thing that you have to do is you have to change the way you were thinking, and you have to think about yourself. Don't reflect all those wonderful veterans who have been working for 10 and 15 years, and they're going to go out and they're going to buy high ticket items, whether they should or not. That's not you. You are a freshman in this college of education, which is show business. And what you have to do is find out what your grade level is.
Also, that's excellent. The three of you, excellent comments. But let me just say this. Show business is not guaranteed to your ass. It's not guaranteed. You come into this business, that's why they all think we crazy, because we don't know where that next check is coming from unless you are going on a tour that's going to, say, be out there for 10 months, 6 months, a year, maybe more, or a show on Broadway that happens to be a hit. But you can't really count on that. So say you get money for a show that you're doing. It's one night, but you don't know when your next show is, because that's how show business is. You don't know when that next gig is coming along. If you do what so many of us do, and that means me too included, you go out and just spend. Oh, you want to wear the fabulous designer clothes and all this. You're not really thinking about your future. You're just thinking about the now. And so that's not going to work. Ultimately, it will not work out for you. And although you may be young, you still have to think about what's going to happen when you get into your senior years. So go ahead.
No, I think what happens too when you're young is that you think it's always going to be this. I have a job now, and I'm always going to have a job. And that's not so. No. There's peaks and valleys. And in those valleys, that's the time when you prepare yourself with maybe a secondary kind of income that can sustain you throughout your entire career. That's the thing that people don't like to do. I hear people say, I'm an actor, and you can't be an actor, if you do anything else. Well, you can be broke. You can, that's the one thing you can do if you're only an actor and you don't do anything else. If you don't do, unless you're very, very lucky, unless you have people who are leaving you things, who are, you're in wills, you have some kind of an account from your family. If that's not the case, then what you have to do is understand that this is a dual, most of us have to have a dual occupation in here. Some people have temporary work that they go to. Some people have a job at night that allows them to audition during the day until they get something. And that is an adjustment. But you have to understand that you need to have a flow of money that is consistent throughout your life. That it's not dependent upon this check that is very sparingly, maybe the only one that you get for the next 3 or 4 years, depending upon the season. Even if you are in a show that goes out on the road and they say you're going to be out the road for 2 years, and suppose the show closes while you're out on the road.
Yep.
Okay.
So I'm going to get to me in a minute, and I'm going to tell you, I ain't ashamed. I'll own up to my crap, because I was terrible. But so just to deal with people fresh, new, young in show business at best, if your family knows nothing about the stock market, you have never heard about the stock market, 9 times out of 10, you can't do that, because you got to know what you're doing and you have to have a certain amount of money and to play with. So we can just figure that you right there at the bottom, savings account. Okay, that's a good way to start. And just like everybody said, just look at everything and see what you can afford to put into that account, and then be consistent. All right, now we're going to move it on up, Carl and Byron. So they've been in business for a while. Maybe they're in their 30s. And their salaries are good. You know, they're getting good checks for a show, and they're working consistently. So what would you say they should start looking at? Even before then, they could still be in their 20s and this could happen. Would you say that would be a good time to get into the stock market? I'll start with you, Byron, first.
I think if you are in your 30s and you're listening to this video, you should start investing like yesterday. If you're in your 20s and you're listening to this video, this is the perfect time to start investing. My background is in risk. One of the worst things you can do as an artist that will kill a career so quickly is, and this is piggybacking on what we've been talking about before, is getting that check for a performance, looking at that whole check and thinking that you can just spend it. Because, in a way, we're talented. We do our thing. We get out there, we sing, we play, we dance, and then that money comes in like that. And we feel as if it was easy, or, it all of it came at once, and now we don't have a plan. And that's the worst thing that you can do as a musician, an artist, because if that money goes out and you have not budgeted, if you have not paid very close attention to how are you building your wealth over time, how are you making sure that on the days when you don't have work and the years that work is slow, and during pandemics and during wars and earthquakes or whatever, you name it, there are all kinds of things out there that are part of Mother Nature that could trip you up financially. If you're not paying special attention to that and you're in your 30s now, it's time that you really get it together and really start trying to figure out, so that when you're 40, you have $100,000 in either the bank or in equity in a house, or in something that you can draw on in case you need it, or just at least you're building something for your future.
Because the thing is, you want to start, if you have that kind of money coming in, you want to start when you're young, oh my God. So by the time you get to retirement age, baby, your ass going to be sitting pretty. Come on, Carl, tell me something.
Oh, the one downside to being successful, whether it's entertainment or the corporate world and stuff like that, is the history of where you came from.
Yes.
And in the Black community, and it happens to be that my family was the same way. I was the oldest of 7 brothers. I had 6 siblings. That I had 3 sisters, and four brothers, and income in the family was very low.
Mm-hmm.
And even my going away to get a last minute scholarship, I was going to go to Brooklyn College or one of the schools in New York City that didn't cost as much as some of the more traditional colleges. And so I always appreciated money that I did earn, whether it was washing people's windows or painting a fence or whatever. And so I was very frugal with that. But most of the money went to help my brothers and sisters, which my mother and father didn't have the income to feed them. And that's could be applicable to whatever job you have in this world. You can be an actor and that's what your vocation is and stuff. And so therefore you probably run up against some of the same things. And your family put a lot of pressure on you sometimes, not directly, but indirectly. You feel guilty that you got a little extra money in your pocket and you got a mother or a father or a sister or a brother that's not doing well, and that money leaves your pocket. Mm-hmm. And that's a difficult thing, especially early during your life, and it may actually drive you crazy by the time you're 30, 35, where you can not only take care of your own needs and maybe your own immediate family, but you have these other members pulling at you. And it's not like an outsider. That could be an outsider pulling at you, but the thing that pulls at your heartstrings is when it's one of your family members.
Yes.
And therefore you give up a lot of opportunities to put that money into a good, stock or into into the bank account and stuff. And that's what it challenged me. It struggled. It choked me in terms of taking advantage of a lot of other things that I would like to have done with the money, including investing heavier in the stock market. And but I felt emotionally, I felt at ease because I did it, and I think it was the right thing from an emotional thing to do. But from a financial thing, it pulled me probably down until I was in the 40s, where I had extra money in the stock market making money for me.
Okay, that's excellent because it depends on what our backgrounds are, which will determine exactly how we get started and how we spend money and what kind of money do we spend. Lennie, were you always at a young age responsible financially and knew that, I need to save, I need to be consistent, I need to put money away for a rainy day? Were you always like that?
I will say that the influence in my household made me like that. My mother and father. My mother was one of those persons that, I'm gonna tell her business now. She's gone, so she won't get me. That if she didn't have $500 in her breasts and her bra, she didn't have any money.
Shut up.
Oh yeah, she didn't have any money.
I feel the same way.
She had to be able to go in there, and if it was wrinkled and sweaty, but there was $100 bill that she could give you. Being raised in a household that was like that, being raised in a household like my father, who they didn't believe in if you made a bill, you paid that bill. I mean, you knew where that money was coming, or you budgeted for it. Watching that every single day of my life until I was at college age, I became a little bit more responsible, probably than most people. And, in fact, Joanne, who was my cousin and sister, said, "You're just stingy. You're a stingy person."
Tight with that dollar.
Yes. I let her spend her 50 cents, but I was keeping mine, So I think it's Carl related to it. It relates to your background and your responsibilities. Yes. I didn't have any really responsibilities because my parents, all their attention was for my success. So the money went to the lessons and the money went to the music and all the dance class, all of those things. But they divided it up very evenly. One of them paid for the lessons, one of them paid for the private school, one paid for elocution. They divided it up. I was lucky that way. A lot of people don't have that. And so you have to take that into consideration. But yes, people tease me now. They say, "I bet you have the first dollar you earned." I don't. what I have near it.
Okay, well, I think now is the time for me to confess up, to fess up. So I'm going to use me as an example. I've always been into clothes. I mean, always. So when I started getting like a consistent check, and that would probably be with Bubbling Brown Sugar, and it was pretty sizable. I was too busy, and this went on for years, buying designer clothes. And when I opened up the show in Europe, I had kept two apartments, one in Europe and one here, for several years. I would go shopping in limousines, and I wasn't saving at all. So one day, my mother said to me, Vivian, I hope you're saving, because she was very, very good with money. I mean, with CDs and turning them over. And the interest back in those days, it was really great good for CDs. So she said, and this was a small sum, but nonetheless, she said, if you don't have at least $10,000, and for what I was making, it should have been way over that. She said, something is wrong. If you don't have at least $10,000 in the bank, something is wrong. I didn't say anything, but inside I was saying, uh-oh. You know, so that didn't even stop me. So much money has gone through my hands over the years. I cannot tell you how much. So I was in the bed one night, and I woke up, broke out into a sweat. And why did that happen? Because I'm getting older, and I realized that I hardly had any money in the bank and nothing but beautiful clothes in two apartments, one in France and one here. But I had nothing to show for it. What was I going to do in my senior years? What was I going to do? How was I going to live? And I had grown to a certain, way of living. So the next day I'm talking to a friend, and he said, Vivian, Abyssinian is doing things with brownstones. And I was teaching for Berklee College of Music at the time. He said, why don't you go and look into that? I think you could qualify. So I did. I went up to Abyssinian, got an application and everything. The stock market. I don't know what made me do it. I just went on CNBC. I don't understand that thing going across. What is all that? What does that mean? So for 2 days, I watched CNBC, not really understanding a lot. And one of these days, they had this investment group on, and these ladies were elderly, the Beardstown Investment Club, all elderly ladies.
Yes, I remember those ladies.
And I was so intrigued by what they had to say and their investments, and they had written 3 books. There were 3 books. I go to Barnes & Noble, and I buy all 3 books. So I have my application here for Abyssinian, and my credit was good. That was not ever in question, because my bills were always paid on time. And then I had these Beardstown lady books. I read them from cover to cover several times. And then they accepted me. My credit was good. So then I was able to purchase a building. So let's get to the point. Why should my stability have come from something unrelated to what my life's work had been? Because certainly the amount of money that had gone through my hands from show business should have had me set for life. And yet it was outside of the business that made me comfortable. That should not have happened, but like we're talking, that's why I wanted to do this video. Don't let me be you, because when you have a certain amount of money coming in from what you love to do, and that's you're in show business. And having said that, you can't just jump, and I'm going to let Byron and Carl talk on this. You just can't jump in the stock market. I did not get into the stock market until I knew what the hell I was doing. I didn't do it. I had to understand it first.
Right.
I had to understand that thing that goes across on the bottom, what it meant. I did research, and I bought other books. The Wealthy Barber. There were several books. I became knowledgeable, and I've done quite well in the stock market because I know what I'm doing. But there was a time where I didn't know what I'm doing. How did I know what I'm doing? Because I read books, I looked, and in the stock market, I don't let too much time go by before I check on them companies to make sure that, and I'll give you an example. Apple, when Steve Jobs, he had left the company, he wasn't there, and they had this other person, and the company had gone way down. And so I bought some of the stock at $13 a share, and everybody thought I was crazy. But why did I buy that stock? Because on CNBC, one of the analysts talked about the possibility of Steve Jobs coming back to his company. What? And that's why I bought it, and I've never looked back since. So I'm going to let Byron and Carl speak on, and now I'm talking to all of you folks who now have this. Now you have some money and maybe you want to get in the stock market. Go, Carl.
Well, I have fortunately, I went to grad school and had an MBA. We ran simulated models in the business school. It gave you a feel for that kind of thing, but I never had the money to back it up, because there was no money to be had. I understood the need to have money in the stock market, though, if I ever got the extra money that I wanted, and having a long career with the same company provided me with that money. First of all, you get money in terms of stock shares, every payday. The company gives you 5% for you to stock, to put away. They give
Lennie,
you that.
wait, excuse me, Lennie, we in the wrong profession. What? We need to be.
No. What my biggest problem was, I want to cut off, is that actually out of high school, I worked for Exxon all the way through college, and when they offered me the job of a junior executive, I said no because I wanted to be in show business. And my father almost had a heart attack. He said, "Exxon, no." But go on, my dear.
Anyway,
Carl.
Go ahead, Carl.
No, but and that was the start for me, because I watched the stock. In fact, most of the guys on the trading floor be looking at the big screen and watching numbers go by, and that captivated me. That I'm getting my 5%, but they'll raise it to 7% if I put in another percent out of my own pocket. And it made it very creative in terms of building up a nest over 35 years. Yeah. And that's where most of the extra money that I would, see building up, and you don't touch it, just leave it there, and it just grows and grows and grows. It's just so many other young men and women that don't have opportunity like I had. That was my big push into this stock market. To this very day, I still own Exxon with Exxon Mobil stock now, because we merged in 2000, around 2000. Okay. So basically, that was my. It was a no-brainer. You just lived it and breathed it, and you let it stay there, and it grew in terms of price and dividends and everything else.
But that's a different kind of thing, because that's part of your career, and you were with a company.
But you had options on it. You had options of taking it out, foolishly, or doing other things with it. And but yes, that's an example. Now I don't own all ExxonMobil stock. I look at CNBC also. That's a big help to me, and I do talk to people that knows more about that part of the business than I do, and I get feedback. And you'd be foolish not to take a close look at what they're saying, and what
Yes.
they're carrying in their portfolio. So
Okay, that's great, Byron.
Wow, there are just so many different areas that we can go here on this topic. Well, one thing I admire you, Vivian, because that story is it's really inspiring because there's so many talented artists out there, musicians that don't even consider the possibilities of taking their finances and just like they sharpen their skills with the voice or with the keys or with the drums or whatever they do, and sharpening their skills when it comes to managing money and dealing with money, because money is a tool just like anything else. It has to be sharpened and developed and focused and all these kinds. I remember when I got into the financial markets, it was with stocks. And I was fascinated with how the smaller stocks could just grow to an exorbitant amount of money.
Smaller stocks? Are you talking smaller stocks or penny stocks? What do you mean?
Small caps, yeah.
Oh, small caps. Okay.
Right, and I dabbled in the pennies a little bit. Did well.
Yeah,
with
I did too.
Right, but I learned my lesson the hard way, because you're not always going to do well with the pennies. So
not at all.
That's a story for another day. But then that led me into to FX, and this was back during right around Hurricane Katrina, when the price of oil was just starting to go out the roof because the supplies were getting cut off in the Gulf and everything. And I saw numbers that I just couldn't imagine ever seeing in my life. And I said, wow, this is something. And I've been hooked ever since.
Okay.
Right. And so then I got into it deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And then now, can you believe that was 15 years ago?
But
17 years ago. And now it's now I'm in a place where I can look back and say, if I had never just been curious, I tell people curiosity is my most valuable asset, and it should be yours too.
I just think the concept that we have to consider when we talk about people in our business is one thing that you had going for you, and that is that you had good credit.
Yes.
Talk about that is something that most people in our business really don't understand how to sustain it. They've been offered credit cards and they get offered an amount, and they always top it off thinking, okay, I'm going to get another job and I'm going to pay this down. I'm going to pay this down. And they don't. And it puts them in a position so that they are not good credit risks. And when that happens, therefore, some of your opportunities are not available to you.
No.
The opportunities that you had in order to go to Abyssinia and to purchase a brownstone. Those things, I have been in shows with people who would buy a fur coat and then not have enough money to pay their rent. And then be upset when they went to go buy something and the cashier took their card and cut it up.
See,
not understanding the balance. They just, if they're just like they have in the sports, there should be a class explaining some of the economic balances to these young people when they come into our business, like they do with the sports people now,
Well, I will say that, I ran credit cards up. I think most young people do. And if you don't, you've been blessed not to do that. And a lot of times, because they were up so high, what I was paying when I was paying on them was just the interest, paying on the interest.
Yes.
The principal was still there. So, but I always made sure the bills were paid on time. What happened is when I purchased the brownstone and then sold it some years later, I paid off any debt that I had, and I never had debt again. I keep one credit card, and that's it.
Can we all agree though that this type of debt, this credit card debt, is probably the worst thing
Absolutely.
For an artist? Because what happens when you have that credit card, and we're talking just maybe not even $5,000 on a credit card. When you're trying to make that monthly payment every month, that kind of chronic responsibility of having to pay on something, a debt that's never going away.
No, because you're basically paying interest all the time.
Now in the back of your mind, you got to take that one gig that you really don't want to do. Your heart's not really in it. that will kill a career so fast, that will kill your spirit so fast. And it's just not for we artist types, that is just not the way to function.
It really isn't. It really isn't.
It compromises your integrity. Then you start taking the jobs that you have to take, and you start doing things that you would not normally do. Exactly. And therefore you lose your power.
Yeah.
You lose your power.
Lenny.
Yes, my dear.
I'm going to start this one off with you. Okay, you've made it. You're big time. You have a manager. Talk to me about this. Artists who turn everything over in terms of power of attorney. I'm talking to you guys who are succeeding in show business, but you turn around and discover you have no money in the bank because your manager, your accountant has ripped you off because you were not on top of your shit. You turned it all over to them. Speak on that, Lenny.
Well, I think the first thing that people have to understand about managers, especially you're talking about experienced people now, but let me just go way back a minute to those people who come in the business.
Okay.
They always talk to me about, well, I got to manage. I said, what is he managing, darling?
Yeah, what is he managing?
What are you doing? What is he managing? I think that young people think that, and maybe the businesses, in their category, I'm different now because I've been in it a long time. So when people recognize your name, there's a different relationship that people have for you. But when you're a young person and you think that I have to have a manager in order for me to get a gig, that takes away from your own power. And when you start getting older, and as Bill Cosby used to say, he signed every check. Okay. You signed every check. He and Oprah Winfrey, they signed
Oprah too. I was getting ready to say Oprah Winfrey.
Yes, they signed every check. You need to know every penny about where your money is going. There's no excuse for someone to say, well, I didn't know, because ultimately you're going to be responsible. You're going to hold the consequences, whether you go to jail, whether you pay fines. They may get some troublesome out of it, but basically it never, ever leaves your responsibility when the law looks at it. Yep. So what you need to do is, excuse my expression, get up off your lazy ass.
That's it.
Okay. And always read your statements every month. If you're on the road and your manager is to pay your bills, you need to get a double check to make sure those bills are being paid.
Yeah, and see, that's what I did because I had an accountant that had known me since I was 17. And so he could write checks and everything, but there wasn't a time when I got off the road, he would come here, we sat down, we went through every check. And if I saw a stub, but I couldn't see the check, I said, where's the check for this? And he had to produce that check.
Yes.
And that was before the brownstone and all that. I always had that sense. I want to know where my money is going. Where did this go? What was this check for? Blah, 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 blah. Okay. Briefly, Byron, Carl, I want you to speak on that as well.
I think it's very important to have checks and balances in almost all things even with family members. I don't take it for granted. I take, so I know I'm going to double check on a outside person. You sometimes in our busy days or busy enterprise or what we do for a living, we get lost in terms of time. And you assign somebody that you believe in that will do the right thing, and they turn evil against you in terms of way they handle your business and everything. So I just think that you have a responsibility to yourself is to ask the questions that you ask of your managers or your accountants and stuff. We have accountants, and we always question him on something, and we get into even the dispute. I think we used the accountant that Lenny had 40 years ago, 45 years ago, whenever it was. And I like him. But when it comes to the numbers, I want to understand them.
You want to understand the numbers.
He put it down in writing and send it to us and explain it to us.
Well, but
what
also,
about you?
I just want to interject.
Go ahead.
One thing. What Carl does, what he doesn't say about our accountant is Carl Carl prepares the sheets and sends it to the accountant.
Okay.
So that he knows what those numbers are. But that's a rarity. That's somebody who does it for a living. I'm so sorry, Byron. Go ahead.
That's okay.
That's okay. One thing that I got hip to very fast is Excel spreadsheets.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I really didn't know what that was until I went to the London School of Economics and took a course there in managerial finance and had to learn how to work an Excel spreadsheet. Now what I do every week on Fridays, and I'm set to do that in a couple hours here, is I sit down and I go through all of the books and I update the numbers so I can just see where I am financially at the end of every single week. And in terms of money coming in, money coming out, I just make sure that I'm an American Express user.
Me too. That's me.
Yeah, and I make sure that I love how we can always talk about, well, how do you do these kind of things? I recommend American Express or companies that do provide you with pie charts and resources where you can look at your spending. You can look to see where this money is going and how. And they're really good at it. If you don't see something that looks right, if something looks kind of, I'm confident that I can call them up and say, hey, this isn't right.
Absolutely.
I didn't make this charge, or this was not authorized, or this was. And so I feel like Amex is a partner in that. And so that does really, that helps my finances tremendously.
Okay, so guys, you watching? Just don't turn your career over solely to somebody and just let them have free reign. Because you won't win in the end, especially you don't know what kind of character they are. They could be the most dishonest person in the world. And their job is to trick you into thinking that they're a good, nice, honest person, when it could be all kinds of things lurking in the background that they plan to do to you. So just be careful with that. And also, going back to the beginning, for you young people, just know credit cards are not the answer. They're just not the answer. It's going to get you in trouble. Just spend within your reason. But whatever you do when you start off, just think about saving, even if it's just a small amount. Just be consistent, because you have to think of your years when you're going to retire, because show business is a fickle business. Glad you're in it, but there's no guarantees there. So you have to be savvy and read. See people who are doing financially, listen to them talk, get books, just become knowledgeable, be an informed performer. Don't be a stupid performer, because I did dumb shit, but my credit was always good because I made sure my bills were paid on time. So that was probably the good thing that I did. But I want to thank you guys so much. Lynnie Godfrey, my girl, Lynnie, and her lovely, wonderful, handsome husband, Carl E. Lee. Thank you so much for your input, Carl.
You're very welcome.
And Byron Burford Fierce. And by the way, he's an incredible, we already did it in a conversation about him as a concert pianist. He's an extraordinary concert pianist. So anyway, thank you so much. And thank you for tuning in and watching this video. And don't forget to subscribe. And don't forget to like. And don't forget, be knowledgeable about what this is and what makes this business work. Until the next time, everybody, wave bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.